Okay, so yesterday we saw this verse number 1.30, that Arjun is telling that I am now unable to stand here any longer. I am forgetting myself and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of the Kisi demon. So here we discuss so many points about this verse, that how the material world is designed in such a way that if we think too much about our own happiness, automatically miseries follow. And if we just think about Krishna's happiness, automatically we become happy, because pleasing Krishna is like watering the root of a tree. So when you water the root of the tree, automatically water reaches to all the parts of the tree. But individually, if we water every leaf, it will be a very troublesome process, and at the same time it will not be very effective. Or other way we can tell, if we want our whole body to be nourished, then we have to feed the food to the belly, because the hand alone cannot enjoy the rasgulla. So that's the nature of this world. And because here Arjun is playing the part of a conditioned soul, and playing that part, he's thinking himself to be the enjoyer, and he's just thinking about his own pleasure, and therefore he is finding himself in such a bewildering condition. So now we will move on to the next verse, 1.31. So the translation of the verse is like this, that I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsmen in this battle, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. So, in the material conception of life, people become blind even to the causes of material happiness. So, Arjun here he is forgetting even the codes of moral codes for a Kshatriya, which bring material happiness for a Kshatriya. Because a martyred Kshatriya in a religious fight, a Kshatriya who dies in a religious fight, and a sannyasi who is devoted to spiritual culture, they both attain the same destination of the sun planet. So here Arjun is unable to see that even if I don't want spiritual happiness, even if I want material happiness, still I should fight this war, because he is thinking that if I fight this war, I will get sinful reactions, but that's not the case. He is not forgetting the code of conduct for a Kshatriya. It's a religious battle, and a Kshatriya who fights for a religious cause in a religious way, and he dies like a Kshatriya without running away, with valor, with dignity. If a Kshatriya dies, he will attain the heavenly planet, the sun planet, the same planet which a sannyasi attains. So this also Arjun is not able to see, that even if I want material happiness, not spiritual happiness, still I should fight this war. And opposite to his nature, Arjun has now decided to go into the forest and live a secluded life in frustration. So you see, Arjun is a Kshatriya, and the nature of a Kshatriya is to rule, and he needs an empire, he needs a kingdom. It may be a small kingdom, but the nature of Kshatriya is that he needs a kingdom for his sustenance, because that's his nature. Therefore, when the Pandavas, when they came back from the exile, so they just asked for 5 villages, because they have this nature that they're Kshatriyas, they have to rule. So they just asked for 5 villages, that you keep the whole property, whole kingdom with you. Just give us 5 villages, so that the five of us Pandavas can take one village and we can rule. Because that is how they are supposed to rule, because they are Kshatriyas. So here, but Arjun is now considering all the pros and cons. He is thinking that it's better not to fight and go to the forest, which is not his nature, because he's a Kshatriya. Who can go to the forest? Who is a Brahmanical kind of a person who is detached. So a Brahmana can live in the forest, but a Kshatriya, it will be very difficult for him to live in forest and in seclusion, because a Brahmana, when he goes for begging, suppose for example, then suppose someone insults him and tells that I will not give you any alms, then the Brahmana has this nature of tolerance, so he can tolerate. But Krishna tells that Arjun, if you are in such a position, if you go to the forest and live a life like a sannyasi, and when you go out for begging, and suppose someone denies you to give you alms, then you will become angry, and then you will pull out your sword and you will try to kill that person, because you have a Kshatriya nature, and Kshatriyas have this kind of dignity, this kind of pride, this kind of self-respect for themselves. So it will be very difficult. But here Arjun is deciding opposite to his nature, that he wants to go, and that is what Krishna will be explaining him, that it will not be possible for you, Arjun, to live in forest like a sannyasi, because you have this Kshatriya nature. So this point he is explaining. And a very important point that we should note here, the Shreyas and the Preyas. So Shreyas means when we just think about, when we think about our long term benefit, and Preyas means when we just think about our short term benefit. So earning money, making a nice family, and enjoying life, the worldly things, the materialistic pleasures, they come in the category of prayers, or the short-lived happinesses, the short-lived benefit. Because ultimately, whatever you do, you are going to become old, diseased, and you are going to die. So whatever you earn in this world, any amount of money, any amount of reputation, so these all things come in the category of prayers, because anyhow these things will be taken away. But Shreyas refers to a long-term benefit or a permanent benefit. So here Arjun is considering this Shreyas and Prayas. He is thinking that if I fight and if I win the kingdom, so I will get some Prayas, some short-term benefit. I will be able to rule over this kingdom for some years. But I will lose the Shreyas. Why? Because he is thinking, although that's not the case, but he is thinking that if I kill so many people, then I will get so much sinful reaction for it. And because of those sinful reaction, I will have to suffer so much in hell after I give up this body. So for little enjoyment in this body, I will get a lot of punishment after I leave this body. So this is the intelligence of Arjun being depicted here, although he's getting some calculations wrong. But this is how a person is supposed to think about Shreyas and Prayas. People in this world, they just plan for their prayers, their benefits of material life, how they can make a career in this world, how they can earn their livelihood, they can be comfortable in this world. All these things are in prayers category, because anyhow 40, 50, 60 years maximum, this is what you will enjoy. But Shreyas means permanent benefit, and that is what Krishna consciousness gives. It gives you the permanent benefit, even if you do a little bit, even if you chant few rounds, so that is permanent benefit. That's your permanent bank balance. The bank balance of State Bank of India that you have, that will be in praise category. But even one round if you chant in this life, that is your permanent bank balance. So intelligence is to invest in a bank which gives you permanent returns, not in a bank which just gives you temporary returns. So that is what our Shastras advise. And here Arjun, being a great devotee and a learned person, he is thinking from the point of view of Shreyas, not from the point of view of Prayas, and therefore he is wanting to give up the fight and just go to the forest and just live in seclusion. So moving on to the next verse, 1.32 to 35. So here 32, 33, 34, 35, the four verses are together. So the translation of the four verses are like this. O Govinda, of what avail to us are a kingdom, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield? O Madhusudan, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-laws, grandsons, brothers-in-laws, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them, even in exchange for the three worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? So we can learn many, many important points from this quotation from Arjuna's dialogues. So one very important thing to understand is how Arjuna is using these words Govind and Janardhan. They signify many things. So Govind means one who gives pleasure to the cows and senses. Go. So go refers to cows also, and go refers to senses also. And Govind refers to the person who gives pleasure to cows and pleasure to the senses too. So here Arjun is telling Krishna Govinda. So he is telling that Krishna, you are Govinda. That means you give pleasure to cows and senses. So why don't you understand that what will give pleasure to my senses? Why are you telling me to do the opposite thing? Something which will not give me pleasure. So why you are Govinda, then why don't you act according to your name? So Arjun is telling this to Krishna. But here the mistake of Arjun is that it's not that Govinda is supposed to give pleasure to our senses. The point is that when we please the senses of Govinda, then we automatically derive pleasure. So this logic Arjun is mistaking here. Obviously, he is a pure devotee, but as a conditioned soul, he is playing that part of a conditioned soul to teach us lessons. So the point that is missing here is that Krishna is Govinda. He gives pleasure to the senses, but how that pleasure comes? Not that we demand pleasure from Govinda. We get pleasure for our own senses when we engage our senses in pleasing Govinda or Krishna, who is Rishikesh, the master of the senses. And when we please Govinda, then automatically we derive that happiness. So here Arjun is supposed to please the senses of Krishna. He is supposed to execute the orders of Krishna. Then automatically he will derive happiness. So this point he is mistaking here. And also here Arjun is referring to Krishna as Janardhan. So Janardhan means the maintainer of living entities. So here Arjun is telling that you are Janardhan, you are maintainer of living entities. Then why are you telling me to kill the living entities? But there is another meaning of Janardhan. So Jan and Ardhan, if we divide it like this, then Jan means people and Ardhan means to kill. So he is maintainer of living entities, but at the same time Krishna is also the killer of the living entities too. So that meaning is also there, that although he maintains also, but he destroys also. So both things here Arjun is mistaking. Another thing that we can understand here, that this is a typical materialistic mentality that Arjun is displaying here. The enjoyment that a person derives by showing his opulence to the family members. It's a typical material life. If you see, if you have some experience of dealing with relatives and society, so many times, like I had one friend in when I was there in my college. So he used to tell me that I am working so hard, not that I want to enjoy too much opulence, I want to enjoy too much money. I don't have so much desire that I want to enjoy too much using a lot of money which I earn. Why I'm working so hard? Because it's society pressure. People compare, and parents want that my son should become like this, so that we are able to show to our relatives and friends that this is what my son is, this is what we are, this is our status, and all such things. So a typical materialistic mentality is to show off your opulence, your learning, or whatever credit you have in your personality to your friends, relatives. It's a typical mentality. Even if you go to marriages, many times I find people with all their makeups on, wearing the best possible suit, all just they are just standing in the middle of the crowd, and silently they are shouting that look at me, just look at me, what kind of a person I am. Just see, I am rich. Just see, I have a smile on my face. Later on, when they go home, they will remove all their makeup and wear a normal, ordinary cloth. But really, in a marriage or in a party, they want to show off. So, this is a typical materialistic mentality. And just opposite is the mentality of the sadhus. The sadhus have just one hairstyle, no, not too many fashionable hairstyles. They keep a shaven head, and they have a similar one cloth only, dhoti kurta always, maybe white or a saffron. That may be different. So a simplicity that is there. So this simplifies the life too much. But a typical materialistic mentality is to just go and show to the people, and that is what Arjuna is also exhibiting here. He is telling that if I kill all these people, then even if I win the opulence, then who will be alive to see my opulence and give me pleasure? Because a typical materialistic mentality means we derive pleasure by showing it to relatives. So relatives have to be there. No, if we kill only the relatives, then how we will derive that pleasure of showing it to the relatives? So that is what Arjun is telling here, taking the role of a conditioned soul, although he is a pure devotee. But here Arjun is again mistaking the point that he is not the person who is going to kill. Krishna has already killed, and he is just supposed to become an instrument. That is what Krishna will tell also. We'll see in the later verses of Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is telling that nimitta matra bhava sabyasachi, that you just become a nimitta or instrument. And during the darshan of Vishwarup, Krishna showed Arjuna also that all these people, all these armies, Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Duryodhan, all the Kauravas, they are already, just Arjun could see that they are all flying in the mouth of the Vishwarup, and the Vishwarup is just chewing them, and blood is coming out of the mouth of the Vishwarup. And seeing this such a ghastly scene, Arjun was terrified, and he requested at Krishna, I want to see your two-armed form as Shyam Sundar. I don't want to see this Vishwarup form of yours. It's very ghastly. So there Krishna displayed also that it's not that you are going to kill. You just have to become an instrument. I have already killed them. That means I have already decided that once they have now come here on the battlefield, they are not going to go back home. So you become an instrument, or somebody else will become an instrument, but they are not going to go back home. So this also we should also understand in our lives, that our role is to become just an instrument of the Lord. We don't have the power to do actually anything in this world. What we can best do is to just offer a prayer to Lord, that my Lord, what is your desire? Let me become an instrument of your desire. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's prediction is there, Prithvi te ache nagaradi gram sarvatra prachar hoy be mora naam, that in all the cities, towns and villages of the earth, my name will surely be chanted one day. So this is the desire of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is surely going to happen. What we can do, we can just become an instrument. So if we become an instrument and we do it, so somebody may think that we are doing it. We are spreading the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but it's not we. It's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doing. We are just becoming an instrument in his hand. And if we become an instrument, that is for our benefit. Similarly, any other field of life, we do just like here, we are trying to make a new temple in Newtown. So this Srila Prabhupada's desire that he wanted a big grand temple in Calcutta. So it is surely going to happen. It is going to come up. But if we contribute for this temple, then we will get our benefit. Otherwise, it's the desire of a pure devotee. So it's surely going to happen. So that is how we can apply this point in our lives also. That we must offer this prayer to the Lord, that my Lord, how can I become an instrument of your desire? And this is the meaning of surrender. Surrender does not mean that we just ask that please do this for me, I am under your shelter. Surrender means we offer this prayer to the Lord, that my Lord, you tell me in this situation where I am standing today, how can I best serve you? In the situation where I am standing today, what is your desire? And if we pray sincerely, surely Krishna will reveal, and he will give us the right intelligence to take the right decision, to act in a way, the way he wants, what is his desire, and that is the perfection of our lives. So moving ahead to the next verse, 1.36. Now Arjun is telling that sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What should we gain, O Krishna, husband of the goddess of fortune? And how could we be happy by killing our own kinsmen? So again, the fear of sinful reaction is being expressed here. So actually, there are 6 kinds of aggressors which are mentioned in the Shastras. So according to Shastras, anybody who gives you poison, or who sets fire to your house, or who attacks you with a deadly weapon, and who plunders your riches, or he occupies your land, or who kidnaps a wife. These are the six kinds of aggressors. They are called atadais. So atadai, an aggressor, is supposed to be killed immediately. So there is nothing wrong. There is no sin incurred if you kill a person who has done one of these six things. But in the life of Pandavas, the Kauravas did all the six things. So even one thing a person does, he is legally authorized. A person can kill him without incurring any sinful reaction. Now a person who does all six, he is surely supposed to be killed. But here Arjun, because of his materialistic conception, he is thinking whether should I kill these people or not kill these people. But such people are surely to be killed. So we can give examples also of all these things. Like Bhima was fed poison and he was thrown into the river. And when setting a fire to the house, like when the Pandavas, when they were there in the Lakshagraha, then the Kauravas, they set that Lakshagraha on fire and they tried to burn them down, and attacking with deadly weapon. So this though has happened so many times. They were attacked and plunders the riches. Obviously, they have been Pandavas have been unrighteously denied of their rightful share of the kingdom and occupies another's land. So the whole land, the whole this Bharatvarsh, the kingdom of the Kauravas, it belongs to the Pandavas only, but they are occupying it and kidnapping the wife. So uh, the Pandavas, the Kauravas, they tried to disrobe Draupadi, and another time also some Pandavas, some Kauravas have misbehaved with Draupadi. So all these six things they have done. So they are surely supposed to be killed, and that's what Krishna will tell. But Arjun is thinking from little compassionate point of view, because so we can see here also that Arjun is arguing that although they are atadai, but we should forgive them on the grounds of saintly behavior and religion. But such a compassion is not befitting a Kshatriya. Actually, a Brahmana is supposed to forgive, but a Kshatriya is supposed to punish. If Kshatriya becomes forgiving, then according to Bhagavad Gita, only later on it will come. A Kshatriya is not supposed to forgive an offender, he is supposed to punish, and Brahmana is supposed to forgive an offender. So both forgiving and punishing are right, but according to the different roles that we take. If you are in the role of a Brahmana, if you have taken the role of a Brahmana, then you are supposed to forgive and tolerate. But a Kshatriya is not supposed to do like that. So the famous example is Lord Sri Ram. When Sita Maya was kidnapped, he did not forgive. He taught Ravan the greatest possible lesson and took back Sita Devi with all dignity, with all honor. So that is how a Kshatriya is supposed to act. And Arjun, he knows, it's not that he does not know all these things, but still he is getting confused because there are different shastras. There are dharma shastras and artha shastras. So this six kind of atadais, they are supposed to be killed according to artha shastra. Artha shastra tells that these six kind of people are supposed to be killed. But the dharma shastras, they tell that even if your relative he does one of the things, then you may forgive him, because it's a different. So Arjun is telling that dharma shastras are higher than artha shastras. So artha shastra tells that such people should be killed, but dharma shastras tell that they may be forgiven on the grounds of saintly behavior and religion. So that is what Arjun is telling. And now he is again using this word Madhav. So Madhav again is addressing Krishna as Madhav. Madhav means who is the husband of the goddess of fortune. So Arjun is telling that you are the husband of goddess of fortune, but why you want to make me do such an activity which will cause misfortune only in our lives? So that is what he is referring when he is addressing Krishna as Madhava. So moving on to the next verse, 1.37 to 38. O Janardhan, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends. Why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? So here, Arjun's logic is like this, and this shows that he is a very intelligent person because he understands all these things. And we should also understand this logic of Arjun, what reason he is telling that he should not fight, because this is what is happening today. So, what Arjun's fear was there that time, that same fear has come true in Kali Yuga today. So, what is his fear? He's giving this logic that if I fight this battle, then two very great dynasties will be destroyed. The royal dynasties, they will be destroyed. And these Kshatriya royal dynasties, they are responsible for upholding the religious principles, the traditions. So if they are destroyed, then there will be no one to protect the religious principles. And then the traditions will be destroyed and there will be no sacrifices performed. So this will lead to irreligion. Men will become unrestricted because they will not be religious, and men become unrestricted, that means they will pollute the woman, and when the women are polluted, then the child born will be a Varna Shankar. Varna Shankar means a child who is not begotten by religious principles, or in other words, the Garbha Dan Samskar. There is a samskar which happens before childbirth. That samskar is not performed, then the child is known as Varna Sankar. So these are like these children who are Varna Sankar, they are like very low mentality children, and these children grow up to become criminals and dacoits, and they cause all kinds of chaos in the society. So Arjun is fearing that men will become unrestricted, then women will become polluted, and the children born will be Varnasankar. That means they will grow up to become criminals and such kind of people, and therefore we will have a very dark future, and we will be responsible for all these mishappenings. So actually today that's what we can see. The children, they uh, not all, but mostly many times, even especially in the Western countries, we see that the young generation, because no proper obviously they cannot perform garbhadan samskar, but even the irreligiously uh, begotten child, he will have the samskar of all irreligion only, and therefore such children, when they grow up, they become such a trouble for the society, and then you have to increase the police force and enforce so many laws, restrictions, maintain so many prison houses. But the best way to counter all these things is to give a proper samskar to the children from the beginning, and to beget child in a religious way, not irreligious way. Because a child begotten in irreligious way will surely have irreligious. It's most of the cases you will find he will have traces of irreligion in his consciousness. So that is what is Arjuna's logic. So here Arjun is also worried about Krishna's reputation. So Arjun is thinking that whatever will happen to what our name will be spoiled, that we have destroyed the family tradition, we will go to hell. Okay, that's fine. But Arjun, because he's a great devotee, is also thinking about Krishna's reputation. That Krishna, you are on our side. You are on our side, Krishna, and if this thing happens, then what the worldly people will tell? What the worldly people will tell, that Krishna was present and his Arjun was present, and still such an unfortunate thing happened. So people will really be troubled. People will really raise objection on Krishna's reputation. So he's troubled about this thing also. So a Kshatriya is not supposed to refuse to battle or gamble when invited by a rival party, but considering all these pros and cons, Arjun is deciding not to fight. So here another very important principle we can learn, that for a higher dharma, we can sacrifice a lower dharma. Like being honest, being truthful, these are dharmas. But when it comes to some higher dharma, these lower dharmas can be sacrificed. Like we see that Krishna, he did a lot of cheating, so-called cheating. It was not actually cheating, but in one sense we can tell Krishna did a lot of cheating during the battle of Kurukshetra, which were not proper according to the code of conduct of a Kshatriya fight. But the principle here is the highest dharma is Krishna's instruction, Krishna's will. For a higher dharma, anything can be sacrificed. So for following a higher dharma, like here Arjun is telling that I want to follow the higher dharma of saving the world from such Varna Shankar population, and for the betterment of the whole world, I can sacrifice this lower dharma, that although we are being challenged by the Kauravas to fight, I will sacrifice this dharma and I will break this Kshatriya principle so that I can follow the higher dharma. And here Arjun is also indirectly referring to the point that the nature of greed is insatiable. Because you see, hunger, if you are hungry, you can eat, you will be satisfied. If you are thirsty, you can drink water and you will be satisfied. But if and also if you are angry, if you scold someone, shout at someone, you may become little peaceful. But the nature of greed is not like this. It cannot be satisfied by food or water or scolding someone. It will never be satisfied. Greed, if you feed the greed, it will become more hungry. The more things you get, the more hungrier you become for obtaining more things. So he's mentioning that's the nature of greed. So hunger, thirst, or anger can be satisfied, but greed can never be satisfied. So why should we give in to our greed for this kingdom? Let's give up this greed and do whatever is best for the society. That's what Arjun is telling. So although greed for materialistic things is very bad, but our Shastras tell that greed for Krishna consciousness, that's a great boon. Actually, we know from our Shastras that Tatra Lolyam Ekam Molyam. Lolyam, it means intense greed. Intense greed, lolyam. The word used for it is lolyam, means intense greed. So intense greed for Krishna consciousness is a great boon, and it's not just a great boon. It's tatra lolyam ekam molyam. The only molyam, the only uh, price that we need to pay for getting Krishna consciousness is the price of having intense greed to achieve Krishna's favor. If we have that intense greed, which is so bad in materialistic things, but if we have that same greed diverted towards obtaining Krishna's favor, that is the qualification for us to get Krishna's mercy. Okay, so we could discuss till verse number 38 today. So anybody has any questions? Anybody wants to ask anything? Okay, so we will finish. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.